The Cruz has docked. Dylan Cruz has gotten the call. Will he lead us to fantasy glory? Or will he flop like the rest of the prospects this year? I got that and more in today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane. You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you call it these days, at Matthew_Ane. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the bell below to subscribe to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify, or wherever you may listen. It really helps out. And if you want a little bit more than what we offer in this 30-minute podcast, check us out on Diamond on the subtext and become a member of the Diamond Club. You get a free 2 weeks. Links in the description below. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get 3 weeks free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, we have big news. I mentioned it right at the top. Dylan Cruz has gotten the call, and this is big. Probably one of the best prospects in the game, especially with all the call-ups that have been made. And this kid is special. I love Dylan Cruz. And we're going to talk about him. We also get other great prospects on this podcast that have been called up that I think are going to just be very valuable going down the stretch. But there's also that other side of the coin where, okay, do they flop? We've seen it from the number one prospect of, Holiday. And we've seen it from other guys this year that have just been called up that couldn't make it, that we all thought were going to be slam dunks. So here are some projections of both sides. And we'll kind of just go down, especially starting with Dylan Cruz I have up on the board. Dylan Cruz, I love the talent. He has everything in the world, right? 5'11", 203 pounds, 22 years old, drafted last year. And, finally, we're going to see what he's really made of. But here's the big thing, right? He played 238 at-bats in AAA and actually was pretty successful. Usually you see like a guy get a promotion, you see a downward tick in production. You did see it in batting average, but you didn't see it anywhere else, funny enough. He actually got better in certain categories. So AA this year, played about 51 games, 186 at-bats. He had 26 runs. He had 11 doubles, 3 triples, 5 bombs, 38 ribs, 15 stolen bases, and batted .274. Gets the promotion to AAA, 211 at-bats. He had 34 runs. He had 10 doubles, 3 triples, 8 bombs, 30 ribs, 10 stolen bases, batted .265. The fact that he was able to keep that kind of going, keep that kind of production going, kind of gives me a sign that, hey, he's able to handle the transition of being promoted. He's good. He's playing as he should, right? Now that gives me expectations that, and indications that he should be able to do the same. Maybe not be at that level. Maybe we see a 250 batting average by the end of season for this, month and a half he plays. He is a cup of coffee, September call-up, essentially. And Dylan Cruz might struggle either out the gate, which I don't foresee being the issue, or down the stretch. Maybe like have a week or two where it's like real ugly because, the league is adjusted to him. We'll see. I like Dylan Cruz's upside. He has power. He steals. He's fast as hell. And I'm enamored by this kid's talent. I'm really mad. I have only one share of him. I was able to get him the second the call was made. If you remember on the Diamond Club on Subtext, you got that alert literally instantly if you didn't get it already from another source. I love this kid. I think he's going to be fantastic. But let me not do this from, rosy glasses and just say, oh, everything's going to be great, because you don't know that, right? Like I mentioned, Holiday, Mayo, and others sent down because they couldn't hack it in the bigs. It happens. Can that be possible? Yeah, absolutely. He isn't going to be a surefire thing, but Dylan Cruz of the Washington Nationals is literally 33% owned. You kind of got to just take the shot on him. He's out there in 67% of your leagues. Add him now, stash him, and see where it takes you. He could be the difference maker. He could also turn around and do a Jason Dominguez type mode where he just goes off and then just thrusts you into the championship. we'll see. I like Dylan Cruz's talent a lot. He has a lot of, you know, tangible skills that I think are going to directly translate to the bigs. It's just a matter of, is he actually meant to be up now? You know, when you're this young at 22, it's a crapshoot. Are they ready or are they not? We shall see. Dylan Cruz is going to be an interesting one. Add him now. All right, and this next guy, Junior Caminero, got the call a couple weeks ago, and you know, impressing me in certain stints and, leaving me wanting more in others. So let's get into it. 34 at bats, 4 runs, a double, a bomb. Oh no, this was last year's. I apologize. My bad, guys. Um, so let me take that back. 43 at bats, 5 runs, 2 doubles, 2 bombs, 4 ribs, 2 stolen bases, batting 302. Like those numbers. Finally, I think he's ready. Him and the Tampa Bay Rays have nobody on that team besides him and Lowe. I think that he's, perfect fit. I think he's going to be fantastic down the stretch as well. He's a little bit more widely owned. I think Caminero is 55% owned, so he's still out there in, 55% of leagues. And he shouldn't be sitting out on a waiver wire. Even in shallower leagues, because I promise you the upside isn't there like other players, like other players out there. So with Caminero, he has all the potential in the world to kind of blow up as well. His minor league season this year, 234 at bats, 37 runs, 10 doubles, 16 bombs, 39 ribs, a stolen base, batting 274. Like, these are all things you want to see out of a guy like this. Even the the OPS was 859, the OBP was 529. Like, he has a lot of tangibles, pure power. Like, he's just a dude that just loves to hit dingers. In 23, he had 31 home runs through 460 at bats. Batted 324 on that season, I might add. I mean, yes, it was through A plus and double A, but still, the pace is real. The fact that what he was doing in 2024 through 234 at bats, which is literally 4 more at bats than half of what he did last year, and he already had 16 home runs on a better pace than he was for last year. I feel like he's really ready to be up this year, because last year he really couldn't cut it, and hence why I think we saw him kind of develop through AAA versus them giving him a shot in spring training this year. Really get him more developed and get a little bit more confidence, a little wind under his sails. He is only 20 years old, so the patient route was the right decision. What they did with Jordan Walker, can genuinely affect a player's mentality, sending them down, sending them back up, then ultimately sending them down again because you brought them up too early. So Caminero, I feel, was managed correctly, but the Rays do that. They manage their prospects correctly, and they just handle everything right that way, except for that one name we're not going to mention. But Caminero, I think, is the future of that franchise of the Tampa Bay Rays. Him being only owned at 55% owned is a sin. I think we need to go out there, add him now, and just make him completely unaddable at this point. Go out, add Junior Caminero. Coming up next, we got a guy like Connor Norby, who we all know how I feel. If you've been around, if you haven't, you're going to want to hear about that. Colt Keith, which is a surprising ownership numbers. I'm actually beyond surprised. And we got Joey Loperfido coming up. And I'm impressed with him since he's gotten the trade. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get 3 weeks free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with YouTube TV's base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season game every Sunday afternoon out of market game. It's going to be fantastic. All you need to do is have a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon and download America's #1 sports book. And guys, since you're going to make that $5 bet, you might as well try and get some cash too, so you can pay for the whole season, right? You don't just want it for those 30 weeks. So let's figure out a bet real quick. So ultimately, I would totally run a money line on any Yankee game this week. There's some good matchups out there, and I think that I throw $5 and you could totally go out there and get that. So hit that money line, visit fanduel.com/lockedon and download America's #1 sports book. Are you watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day? Have you had to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or free on the Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. As the season unfolds, rely on our dynamic content, get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings, instant call notifications, injury reactions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead of your fantasy leagues by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where your path to victory begins. And by joining now, you get a free 2 weeks. You don't want to miss out on all these call-ups that are coming around. You already missed the Dylan Cruz call-up. You don't want to miss the next one. So get in the Diamond Club now. Links in the description below. We're going to help you bring home that championship. But all right, we're getting back in this. Like I mentioned right before the break, Connor Norby of the I don't even know what team he's on now since he was traded. Connor Norby of the Miami Marlins. That's awesome. Sorry guys. Since joining the Marlins, since getting the call, it's been pretty darn good. 24 at bats, 7 runs, 4 doubles, 2 bombs, 3 ribs, a stolen base, batting 375 on the through that little stint. 400 OBP, 792 slug, an OPS of 1192. I love this kid. When he was getting the call for Baltimore, I was expecting a lot more, really couldn't hack it, which, again, he's another one that really couldn't, live up to the hype upon getting the call. Oddly enough, too, he was not a top 100 prospect this year, but he was in 2023. Fell a little bit. I don't know why. I mean, you look at what he did in the minors this year, it's just like, how wasn't he? 379 at bats, 78 runs, 24 doubles, a triple, 17 bombs, 60 ribs, 13 stolen bases, batting 293, an OBP of 382, a slug of 496, and an OPS of 878. He has all the makings of a good prospect and a guy that should have been in the top 100. I think did him dirty, but you're going to see him come up, play for the Miami Marlins, and be fantastic. Obviously, this isn't sustainable, but, worst case scenario with Connor Norby, this year might not be his full year where we're just like in tuned and this kid's going to be the next big superstar. Nothing's guaranteed with any of these prospects. Don't get me wrong, but I like Norby's potential. I like his, his arsenal, and I think that he's going to be successful. But here's the deal. We don't have to commit on this guy, right? Like, I'm not going to be patient with Norby. I'm going to drop him 10 seconds later if he starts to slump because he, again, isn't a desirable or as well-known prospect. So we can kind of add him now, ride the hot wave, hot hand on him. And, while he performs, let's do it. And when he kind of cools off, you can drop him if need be. I'm not going to scold you for letting him fall back on the waivers because you need to have somebody perform. Now, this is no time to really be patient, except I think with the first 2 guys, because they might have those 2 weeks, but you also could have mega weeks after, and dropping them, the ceiling is a lot greater with Dylan Cruz and Junior Caminero versus Norby. So with Norby, you're going to stream this till pretty much the wheels fall off. And then depending on how wild it gets, we'll circle back around essentially and say, okay, are we dropping him and moving on? Or are we going to be patient? Ultimately, I think we're not going to be patient if I'm really being honest. So, Connor Norby is a must add. He is what? 19% owned. He's out there in 81% of your leagues. Add him now. Second base eligibility. Ozzie Albies isn't back, so let's get that rolling. But all right, Cole Keith of the Detroit Tigers is wildly only 39% owned. Cole Keith is a must add. I don't care what anybody says. This kid is honestly just has churned it around. Last year was not the most, how do I put this? I guess indicative of who he is going to be as a player. And, you look at, his minor league numbers and you're like, wow, how come that didn't really translate? Well, he just wasn't ready yet. Now, this year, he's really hit the ground running. 420 at bats, 47 runs, 12 bombs, 51 ribs, 7 stolen bases, batting 264 on the year. But the overall year numbers aren't that impressive because this kid packs a bigger punch than we're seeing here on the stat line here for the year. It took him a little bit to get going, too. But these last 2 weeks have been fantastic. 6 runs, a bomb, 8 ribs, a stolen base, batting 378. He had a little rip too, where like he was really going ham and really performing. the kid is a good bat. Now I want to read you a little bit about like who he is behind the curtain. You know, by the way, he's 6'2" and he's 211 pounds. We all know, if you've been listening, what I get for guys like that. And I apologize. He wasn't up last year. I sound like I just getting all my signals crossed with all these prospects. I apologize. But essentially, this year, I started off slow, is now shaping up to be a better prospect. But last year in the minors, 507 at bats, 88 runs, 38 doubles, 3 triples, 27 home runs, 101 ribs, 3 stolen bases, batted 306, an OBP of 308, a slug of 552, and an OPS of 932. I love this kid. I think he's going to be really good in the bigs. You know, 27 home run season out of him in minors where he was really comfortable. I feel that this year this year is just the start. There's going to be a home run end of the season where he's just going to go on a tear. Him being this little owned needs to change immediately. Second base eligibility, and I promise he's going to be what an unprototypical second baseman is going to be, with just power, no speed, but that batting average is fantastic. That power upside is fantastic. And Detroit itself is honestly turning things around as a whole. You know, I kind of want to grab pieces of that team, whereas in the past I usually was just like, whatever. You know, whereas now they're coming home, they're bringing it together as a collective, and now I'm not even worried about counting stats at this point. So Cole Keith is a smash ad for me. Add him now. Let's talk about this last bat here, and that's Joey Loperfido of the Toronto Blue Jays, and he's about 10% owned. And I like Lope. I've always liked Lope. He was the home run leader before getting the call earlier in the year when he was on the Houston Astros. He obviously was traded, and you know, I'm interested. I'm very interested. The kid not only has power, but he does have batting average built in as well. Loperfido is somebody that I think can be trusted behind the plate, even though if you look at his, total year numbers, it isn't reflecting or a good indicator of what his talent actually is. But, at times he's had moments of brilliance. And I think there was more of on the Houston end of it, how he wasn't getting consistent playing time. Being brought up and down really does mess with your development. But before that, in this year in the AAA, he had about 162 at bats. He had 41 runs. He had 7 doubles, a triple, 13 home runs through that short little stint, 33 ribs, 9 stolen bases. Was batting 272 on the year with an OPS of 933, a slug of 568, and an OBP of 365. I love this kid. Like, he was really good too. And I've been saying this about quite a few prospects. I fall in love with prospects. I love the potential, but doesn't mean this kid's going to be a grand slam either. I think he's more of a stream candidate than long-term value for this year, right? I'm going to ride him while the wave is going. And then when he kind of flops off, I'm just going to drop him. But this last week has been pretty good. And I think there's more to come. 4 runs, a bomb, 3 ribs, batting 400. I think there's another level of this explosion coming, because the kid does have power and he's barely showed it off this year with, only having 4 home runs on the season. It's coming to a point where I think we're going to see this explosion of power, and I want to be on the side that owns him. And if it starts this week, you're going to want to be on that. So him being 10% owned, if you're down an outfielder, I would strongly recommend adding him now. Joey Loperfido can totally be a difference maker going to try and clinch that playoff spot, I promise you. But coming up next, we got pitchers, and we're going to open up with a big one that really should be way more owned, and that's Jeffrey Springs. And then a couple matchup guys and some guys that I'm just like really confused as to why they're not more widely owned. And that's coming up next. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is a reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, electrical products online. The easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources with latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support from leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros and skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from the free membership at supplyhouse.com and order plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. All right. Now we talked to our friends over there. We're going to talk more about some baseball. And like I mentioned right before the break, Jeffrey Springs. Wild, wild, wild that this kid is only 42% owned. Now, I know he had a couple of rough starts, and we're just like, okay, it's the TJ. He's washed. He's never really been able to stay healthy. He's older. He's 31. I get it. I get all the bad knocks. I completely understand where you guys are coming from. Do not get me wrong. Look, I get it. He's 31 years old. He's literally 2 years younger than me. Way to make me feel old, Jeffrey Springs. What is going on here? So anyway, Jeffrey Springs obviously has not looked too great in all his starts, but I promise things are getting better. He had 2 really good starts in a row against Arizona and Baltimore. Handled them really nicely. Went 5 innings deep. Had 7 Ks against Arizona, 8 Ks against Baltimore, and had a 1.8 ERA in both games, and a 1 whip against Arizona and a 1-2 whip against Baltimore. Okay. And then he had another bad start against Oakland. Now, here's the thing, right? Like, he's going to have his ups and downs. Coming off Tommy John's is one of those things where you're going to lose control for a little bit. The power is going to be there. All that velocity is going to be really nice. But the control is there. It is not going to be there right away. So he's going to be a little bit more sloppy. We're going to see a little bit higher whip at sometimes. We're going to see blow-up games. But Jeffrey Springs is somebody that if they snap back, which could be tomorrow, right? Could be the start against Seattle, which this is more of a same-day ad. So if you're listening, I'm sorry. Obviously we weren't able to get to our show yesterday. I hate to miss. But things kind of came up. But anyway, Jeffrey Springs, if you have same-day ad, needs to be added. I mean, the ownership of 42% needs to change. He is so good. The second he figures it out, which we're going to get these starts, is going to be great. I'm starting him against Seattle, and I'm going to start him against anybody but a major team that's going to be like a serious threat to really pound him in. Obviously, Oakland didn't pan out, but I mean, hey, statistically, it was on his side to have a good start, so I was rolling him out all day. But all right, let's move on. Let's talk about Andrew Heaney. Heaney here, another one. I don't know how to put it. He's more of a guy that like I start when I'm like, okay, I need to start. I'm going to stream him. Him playing for the Rangers this year is one of those things where I'm just like, okay, cool. This is life. I'll start him. He's playing against the White Sox, and he's been good at times. Sorry, I'm trying to get this up as well. The only issue again is another same day ad. So again, skip through if you have to. I understand. But he is going up against the White Sox, so I would stream him against them. It's not like they have anybody besides Luis Robert. Luis Robert's just starting to get a little hot again. So, yeah, it poses a little bit threat, but who else is there? Truthfully, nobody. So, Andrew Heaney, I think, is going to be just fine. The start should be pretty juicy. 23% owned. Him and the Rangers should steamroll this team with ease. So, add Andrew Heaney if you can. Now, let's talk about Bowden Francis. Bowden Francis is what? 58% owned and going up against the Boston Red Sox. Now, I'm going to root against the Red Sox every single time. Sorry, Red Sox fans. I am a Yankee fan at the end of the day, so I have to do this. Him and the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be playing them at Boston on the 29th, which is in 2 days from the day you're listening to this, and it should be a decent matchup. He's been really good as of late. Last time out against the Angels, went 8 innings, 12 Ks, got the win, a 1.13 ERA with a 0.5 whip, got the quality start, obviously. Then against the Cubs, the start before, 7 innings, 7 Ks, no earned runs, 0.43 whip. And then the start before that, 7 innings, 8 Ks, a 1.29 whip. Kid has been consistent as of late, and the fact that he's not more widely owned is bonkers to me. So, go out there, add him, because with these recent performances, there's no reason he should not be owned in every league until the wheels fall off. And these starts have been fantastic. Add him now. All right, let's talk about Spencer Arrighetti of the Houston Astros. He has been fantastic. He's 47% owned, and man, he's been on a tear of this last month. 30 innings, 44 Ks, 293 ERA with a .95 whip. That is just fantastic. And how he's not well over 60% is mind blowing. Spencer Arrighetti, the Yeti, needs to be added everywhere. Okay, he had one bad start against the White Sox. Okay, it happens. But lit up Baltimore, lit up Boston, lit up Tampa Bay, lit up the Dodgers. Got hit at Oakland. What is Oakland doing just hitting up these pitchers that they should not be hitting up? Then Texas, then Minnesota. Toronto did their damage, but then destroyed Colorado. My case point done. Arrighetti is somebody that I truly am enamored by, truthfully. I think that this kid has a lot of upside, and he has really good stuff, honestly. Like, I'm going to go down a little bit more into the deeper dive here. So his fastball velocity is at a 94.1 miles an hour. He is getting up a little bit more on the higher contact aspect of average exit velocity 89.1, but that's not too crazy either. It's right on the cusp of like a mile per hour difference, and then he has a red there. He's not really creating chase, but he is getting guys to whiffs. He's striking them out. I would like to see him walk guys a little bit less, and I would like to see him produce a little bit more ground balls. But ultimately, the kid, I think, will correct all that probably in season 2. But if he's able to still maintain this production all the way to the end, he's going to be very valuable going down the stretch in both points and roto leagues. He needs to be added. He also has a great arsenal: four-seam fastball, cutter, curveball, sweeper, changeup, and slider. Now, he doesn't really throw the slider all that much, but everything else is thrown pretty consistently. Lives on that four-seam fastball, but then follows it up with that cutter and curveball thrown at 20% of the time, with the put away on the curveball, funny enough, which is kind of wild, at 34.9% of the time. The kid has some nasty stuff, and the pitch mix is not only, wide ranged and has 6 pitches under his belt, but also can kind of get you and put you away with quite a few different pitches. So Spencer Arrighetti needs to be added. Now, let's talk about this next guy here. I have to actually look at how to pronounce his name. Here we go. So Kaider Montanero. I know how to say the last name. It's the first name that is the one that was an issue. Kaider plays for the Detroit Tigers. And you know what? He's a last-minute add. He is playing the Angels this week. He is 7% owned. And he's definitely a stream, in my opinion. He is not worth anything other than that at this point. Now, let's talk about him as I get him up here. I apologize. I wish that Dom was here for this one. So he has had a solid month. 28 innings pitched, 22 Ks, a 3.54 ERA with a 118 whip. His last start against the White Sox was able to handle business with 4 Ks, a 3.6 ERA, and a 1.6 whip. That's the one thing I don't like, but was able to go 5. And then against the Yankees, handled himself really well. Didn't give up a single run, had a .8 whip and 5 Ks and got the win. A little up against San Francisco, but then torched Seattle with 8 Ks through 6 with a 1.5 ERA with a .83 whip. Montanero has proven to be good at times, and him going up against the Angels that really aren't impressive at all, I feel is a good matchup going into the week. Montanero plays them on, let's see here, on the 28th, which is tomorrow. So that would be Wednesday. And I think it's a really good matchup. I'm adding him and starting him this week just for a vote of confidence. I think that the potential for him to have a good outing, have go 5 innings, get you about 5-6 Ks, keep the ERA down, keep the whip down, hopefully. That's going to be fantastic. If you're looking for the QS, probably not going to happen, but who knows? I think Montanero is somebody that is going to be decently streamable throughout the next couple weeks, so I'm adding him everywhere, so add him now. With that being said, guys, I want to thank you for being here. And since you like us so much, you should go check out my buddy over at Locked On MLB. Covers the whole league. His name is Sully, and he actually has some great takes, and he's a really funny guy. So check him out. Perfect guy to break down baseball for you. So, guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, and check us out on Diamond Club on Subtext and become a member there. The link is in the description below. We both will be seeing you tomorrow, and we'll be covering something. I don't know yet what yet. Maybe Drop-O-Meter, maybe something else. You'll find out tomorrow. Peace out, guys.